What's going on, guys? So I'm going to do a bit of a driving rant here for you. It is an absolutely gorgeous, kind of getting foggy afternoon down here in South Texas on North Padre Island. And real quickly, I just wanted to answer a few of the questions that folks leave on my Big Truck Big RV channel in the comment section. So the first question is actually a really good question. And it's more of a suggestion somebody wants me to provide. So I'm going to give you my best answer to this suggestion. There's folks all the time that are looking for an RV that is suitable for a big family as well as toys, but they don't want a toy hauler. Well, that's a tough one to answer or to give a recommendation on, because there's a distinctive difference between a toy hauler and a standard fifth wheel or even travel trailer, when a large portion of the RV is going to be dedicated towards garage space. This is one of the reasons why I've been trying to collaborate with manufacturers to design a floor plan that is really suitable for smaller toys, maybe a motorcycle, maybe e-bikes, things like that you don't want to have to fold up and tuck away in, every little nook and cranny of storage that you have. But basically a floor plan that's kind of like a bunkhouse toy hauler, but more focused on the bunkhouse than the toy hauling. There are so many folks out there that have ATVs and UTVs, quads, side-by-sides, these things that get upwards of 13 feet or more in length. And I know that makes it very appealing to look for a toy hauler that has like a 13 to 15 foot long garage. But you have to realize that the garage space is going to cut into some form of living space, whether it's going to be the living area or the kitchen, or whether it's going to impact other areas in other parts of the RV, like the bedroom. Maybe they have to change the direction of the bed to be able to accommodate for a larger garage. So whenever you're thinking about toy haulers, whenever you're thinking about bunkhouse floor plans, I think what we need something that kind of merges the two, creates this hybrid between a garage and a bunkhouse that makes it very suitable for both without impacting the living space. So I guess my suggestion would be is we really just have to get RV manufacturers to understand that that's a desired floor plan. For us, if we had a RV the size of a large toy hauler, let's just say 42 to 44 feet long, that did not have a 13-foot garage, but more so like an 8-foot garage, and maybe it was a half garage, and half in the width category, not the length, to where you have an 8 by 4 foot garage that gives you the ability to take all of your e-bikes with you, your scooters, your kids' toys, all the things that are important. And maybe it opens up inside of that space, but the other half of it is a bunkhouse. I think that's kind of the perfect answer. So yeah, the question is does an RV exist today that currently merges the two designs? And the answer to that is there have been some interesting floor plans, but I believe they went too radical. Like there was a floor plan, and I can't remember the brand, but they actually made the slide in the living room a ramp for storage, so you could put a motorcycle or something in there. But then they realized pretty quickly that the amount of weight that adds to a slide can damage that ability for that slide to have any real useful life to it. So that's one approach, but again, it's very radical, and it's not necessarily ideal because you still have to get whatever toy you're trying to carry very high off the ground, and you're going to be limited to about 2.5 feet worth of width. So it's not ideal, especially when it comes to unloading. I really think we need a unit that has the garage in the back, but it's a half garage. It's only about 4.5 feet wide, maybe a little wider than that. It's about 8 feet long, maybe up to 10. But the other side of it is a bunkhouse, a dedicated bunkhouse, and maybe with an additional cornered wet bath. So you have a full 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom unit that also gives you the ability to bring all the toys that you want to bring. A lot of people don't feel comfortable leaving expensive toys on a rack on the back of the RV. And that's one of the challenges, is everyone who goes RVing generally likes to bring something with them that allows them to enjoy the area that they plan on RVing in. So yeah, to answer your question, I have not personally found a floor plan that kind of bridges the gap. I know the folks over at Voltage created a floor plan that had a bunkhouse in it and it was a toy hauler, but you still had the same problem of the living room and kitchen area sacrificing quite a bit to be able to give you an actual bunkhouse plus a garage in the back. So again, not ideal, because you eliminate the area that everyone likes to kind of escape to whenever it starts getting late and you want to watch movies or cooking. And when you take away from the kitchen, dining, and living room area, so it ends up making that floor plan an area that you don't want to necessarily have to hang out, but you're being forced to. So I hope that makes sense. And the next question is pretty interesting as well, and it relates to sway. I get a lot of folks that ask me, do I still need a sway control hitch even though my truck has the tongue weight capacity to be able to support an RV without any issue at all? And the answer to that is, you may very well still need sway control even if you don't need weight distribution. Now, the challenge you may run into is that most weight distribution hitches include sway control. So you're almost required to get a weight distribution hitch to get sway control, but that's not always the case. Manufacturers like Kurt and Reese, they produce a hitch that has an extra knuckle or an extra ball on the side specifically for sway control, even if you're not doing weight distribution. Now, you will be forced to go to a sway control system that may limit you in some ways. It may not give you the ability to back up with it engaged. You may have to unlock it before you back up. And you're going to go to more of a rudimentary style friction pad sway control system versus the traditional sway control that you might see on like a Blue Ox or an Equalizer or some of your other hitches like that. Simply because in order for some of those other hitches to be effective, they also require a good amount of weight distribution, because you have to have weight pressing down on the L brackets attached to the front A-frame section of your RV in order for those hitches to properly provide sway control. Now, there are a few that can provide sway control without needing those L brackets or those spring bars. The Anderson hitch is a really, really good example of that. It's pressed into a sleeve that creates friction just by turning, and you have this triangle plate, which essentially, whenever chained up to your RV, it forces this hinge to have friction in it, and that gives you sway control. I don't believe it's quite as effective on heavier RVs as it is your lighter RVs. So when we're talking about trucks that have that tongue weight capacity to be able to handle larger trailers without the need for weight distribution, you're generally going to be talking about trailers that are well over 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 plus pounds. Because if you look at a truck like this, which can probably handle upwards of 2,000 pounds worth of hitch capacity, you know, and you have an RV that weighs 8,000 pounds and roughly 1,100 pounds riding on the hitch, you're going to want sway control possibly, but you may not need that weight distribution. So again, there are manufacturers that produce a friction style sway control system where you don't have to have any weight distribution. The key though is that the hitch head itself may still have the spot for the spring bars. You just don't have to install them. Instead, you would have to bolt or install a ball on the side of your A-frame. And then on the hitch head itself, there would be a ball. And then you put this friction piece or this friction brake in place there, and you can tighten it or loosen it depending on how much sway control you need, as well as if you plan on backing up, because you want to unlock it or turn it off, in essence, if you want to back up. But that's also a really good question, because it's a question that's often asked. You know, these newer trucks, these heavier duty trucks, have some pretty crazy payload capacities, and many times now don't require weight distribution to go all the way up to their highest amount of tongue weight capacity. And if your tongue weight capacity is 2,100 pounds, 2,200 pounds, you know, there's a lot of large RVs that you could tow that don't have tongue weight in that high of a category, or in that high of a range. So again, sway control might be the thing you're looking at. I'll probably put a link in the description of this video if you feel you might need sway control more so than actual weight distribution plus sway control, because you can't just go out and buy a weight distribution sway control hitch, install it, and get the proper amount of both. The more friction you need to control sway oftentimes means the more downward pressure you need on those L brackets, which is in essence also going to transfer weight. So you want to be sure that you are getting the right hitch for the right application. And that might actually mean going to a hitch that is a little cheaper. You know, you might have to go to one that's a little bit less built for weight distribution. So it's going to save you a lot of money. So that's always a good thing, right? And then finally, really good question. I have a lot of folks who ask about lifting their truck, putting big knobby tires on. How does that impact towing? A long time ago, I made a whole video talking about this. It really depends on the tires. It depends on the suspension. It depends how high you're going. It depends what angle it leaves your RV at whenever hitched up. All sorts of factors. But at the end of the day, whenever you put a lift kit on a vehicle, you do change the engineered design of that vehicle. So you want to keep that in mind. Not only do you change the engineered design of the vehicle, but you also impact how the suspension is now going to handle different types of situations, whether it's just going to be driving in general, off-road situations, payload situations, and towing. A big factor most people cannot really think about or wrap their mind around is how the tires themselves impact towing. The knobs on the tires, off-road tires have big knobs on them, and those knobs can bend and flex as rubber does. So whenever you have tires that have those big giant knobs on them, you oftentimes also have to understand that under certain conditions, especially heavy winds, it may not be so much that your truck and trailer are swaying, but you may be getting the feel of sway, which can be pretty unnerving just simply by the tread blocks on your tire or the sidewall of your tire flexing, bending side to side. So even though, you know, lift kits look great and they enhance the overall appeal of the vehicle, and you may really love your vehicle with the way that lift kit you got looks on there, it may negatively impact you from a towing perspective. It may be better just to get a slightly more aggressive tire on a stock height vehicle to be able to give you the best overall experience whenever towing, the safest feel. I know for me, having a truck that I trust, that gives me confidence whenever I'm towing, is more important than having a truck that just looks cool. You know, my F450 I think looks fantastic. I got stock size, you know, wheels and tires. I haven't done anything there. There are F450s all over the place that have incredibly large wheels and huge lift kits and big tires, and I'm glad that they find that appealing and that's the look they're going for, but I could never see myself owning a truck that looked like that because I realize what it's doing to the engineered design of the suspension components, to the tires, to my ability to tow and handle large weights and heavy weights, and to be able to confidently know that my truck can at least get to the maximum rating that the manufacturer assigned to it because it was engineered as one complete unit and I'm not taking pieces off and modifying. I have nothing against folks who do that to their vehicle. A lot of folks love to modify their trucks, love to do all sorts of suspension enhancements, tire enhancements, wheels, stuff like that. You know, there was a period of my life where I probably liked to do that stuff, but for me now, it's not that big of a deal, to be honest. I think trucks look pretty dang nice as they are. Switching to a better looking wheel, switching to something maybe a more aggressive tire, I don't think is bad at all. I don't think any of it's bad at all. But, you know, for me personally, I would skip the big suspension, skip the 24-inch wheels, skip the, you know, 16-inch wide tires and all of that stuff, skip the lift blocks, all the different modifications that people do. I would skip it personally if it means having more confidence when I'm towing, having less of a possible rough experience or white knuckle experience. And you may not experience that right away. You may tow, you know, every single weekend and just have this absolutely great experience with that truck with all those modifications. But that one trip that you take where you're like, man, is my truck pulling into ruts because of this? Is my truck, you know, feeling like there's a ton of sway because of this? And you just question whether those modifications are contributing to a really kind of a sketchy experience whenever towing. For me, it's just not worth it. And that's my personal opinion. That's all it is. Not judging anybody else. It's just my personal opinion. Anyways, guys, I sure hope you've enjoyed this video. If you haven't had a chance, I would love if you took a moment, subscribe to this channel, and keep in mind, keep posting those comments on both channels. That's where I get these questions and answers from, and I'd love to give you my opinion. Oftentimes, a lot of what I'm telling you is my opinion, though. So you may have a different experience, and that is entirely up to you, and I hope you have the best possible experience every single time. Guys, we'll talk to you again very soon.